Hey there, Earthlings, alternative travellers, my strange unusual companions. Put down that mouse and lend an ear. Welcome to the Bandersnatch YouTube channel, where we talk the weird, the wacky, and the wondrous. I'm the Bandersnatch, and I usually have no idea what I'm doing, but today we'll be talking about episode 5 of House of the Dragon, season 1. So we start off in the Vale with Lady Rhea, who, after telling her cousin she's going hunting, we see her cross paths with Damon, who is her husband, and he turns a horse, which causes her to fall off and get hurt. After she effectively bitches him out. She calls him out for his bullshit, which of course ends up having her on the floor extremely hurt. And we kind of see this moment of he kind of decides, I'm not going to kill you, I'm going to let you kind of die out here. And she calls him out again and calls him Craven, which means he goes back and kills her properly. Which I think is kind of, once again, kind of shows how much Damon is a very dual person. He's weird, kind of coin person. He has two sides. And then we kind of get taken to King's Landing, where Alicent says goodbye to her dad, and they end up arguing at the gate over what was heard and told, and this kind of sets Alicent on a little bit of a tailspin, as she sees sees the rare bad side of her dad. And of course, with Otto, it's more he's kind of worried for her. He wants his grandson on the throne, and he doesn't quite trust the Targaryens, and he doesn't trust the fact that life will go well. Of course, this is switched in between with Viserys travelling to the Valerians to meet with them, and it's obvious that he is not a very good traveller on the sea. He ends up throwing up, and it's obviously aggravating the illness he has. And we kind of see how different he is with his new hand, and with who's Lord Stone, and with Rhaenyra, who's kind of with Sir Criston. They're kind of a bit more used to the boat. It's a kind of good thing, kind of comparing that father and son, they're not the same. Obviously they get up to the gates of the Valerians' castle, and they're not really invited. They're not really kind of met properly as to be expected. And Laena, who is the daughter of Rhaenys and Corlys Valerian, kind of comes down and kind of introduces herself and says, "My dad's just returned. He'll meet you in the Great Hall. He's just come back from his own travels." So of course you kind of get taken up into the castle, shown how different High Tide is to King's Landing. And of course, the king and the Lord and Lady Valerian privately meet and discuss the marriage proposal, kind of forcing Rhaenyra to kind of hang out with her cousins like they used to do as kids. I think it's kind of funny that they kind of argue over the finer detail. They kind of agree to the marriage, but argue over finer details such as names. Viserys kind of offers an alternative, say they'll be known as Valerian whilst I'm still alive. But of course, when Rhaenyra becomes queen, they'll become Targaryen, because Targaryen must hold the throne, regardless. Of course, anyone who's read the book knows this kind of goes sideways, and if you know Game of Thrones, you know it definitely goes sideways in the future, which is kind of funny. So yeah, of course they they finally agree, and of course, we kind of see Rhaenyra kind of walking with Laenor, and she knows he's gay and says, look, I don't really care, just let's do our duty, let's have a kid, let's have like an heir or two. Second that's done, I don't give a damn what your tastes are. And of course he agrees to it, and it's kind of a two-way street, which I think is a good thing, because Rhaenyra is still kind of wanting Kristen around to so he can ride the dragon. Yeah, and of course Laenor's parents, Rhaenys and Corlys, kind of argue, because they know that they're argue a little bit, because they know that the second Viserys dies, there's going to be chaos. Because, not everyone, even though everyone's agreed that Rhaenyra's the heir, people are going to want her brother on the throne. And of course they know that Laenor is gay, and they worry about him as well. Which, of course, is, every parent's going to worry, regardless of what time frame it is. I also like the fact that Rhaenyra kind of, as they're walking on the beach, Rhaenyra and Laenor kind of just talk and kind of agree that, excuse me, once they've done their duty, after they've married, then yeah, they'll just end up going about their own ways, having, partners outside of the marriage once they've done their duty, which is kind of a good thing, really. They kind of agree to that, which is good. And of course, it's hammered home by Joffrey, who's Laena's love, whilst they're kind of sitting out amongst the dunes and away from the sight of others. And Joffrey tells him, I'm going to be around as long as you want me, which I think is pretty good. He's kind of saying that I'm going to be around whether you want me or not. Of course, this is kind of different to the moment Kristen and Rhaenyra have on the ship going back to King's Landing. It kind of sours a bit, because Kristen says, look, just run away. You've said you don't want to marry and all the rest of it. And now the days come, you're kind of doing as you're told. Just run away with me and we'll get married and just live in Braavos and be happy there. And of course, Rhaenyra's been told, hey, something's going on. It's the prince that was promised, which is later Jon in Game of Thrones. And she kind of knows she has to carry on the dynasty. So, of course, she has to do as she's told. And of course she tells this to Kristen and says, look, we can still be together. I just can't marry you. I have to do the official shit. And Kristen's like, but you just want me to be your whore. And he's not happy about it, because all he's got is his name. And so, of course, he storms off in a mental tailspin, which I think anyone would do in that situation, regardless of sex and time frame and all the rest of it. But yeah, so of course they get back to King's Landing, and Kristen's summoned by Alicent, and she's trying to find out the truth. She's trying to find out if Daemon did sleep with Rhaenyra, and stupidly he tells her it was him and Rhaenyra instead of Rhaenyra and what is his name? Daemon, that's it. My mind went blank and that was really bad. But of course, Alicent's been put up to this by one of Lord Stone's sons, who kind of points out, hey, she was handed some tea, is she alright? Kind of thing. She's in her own tailspin. And because of this, she doesn't put Kristen on the spot. She kind of lays into it. So, of course, she's dealing with her own tailspin. Which aggravates his, which is not very good. But I think it kind of proves bad stuff's going to happen later on. So, of course, we end up at the wedding feast, and the head of the King's Guards announcing people, And of course, Lord Lannister makes his way up to the high table, and jokes with the king about women being late, and compares that women because of that, women can't really deal with war. Obviously, Alicent's not there yet, which is hence the joke. But Rhaenyra being there, she kind of gives this kind of witty, sarcastic reply, which kind of has Lord Lannister kind of going, oh, I best back off. So that's what he does. She kind of gives him a sarcastic reply, and he kind of shuffles off, and she earns a weird look from her dad, kind of like, yeah, you shouldn't have said that. Of course, Daemon arrives, giving the Great Hall pause. He kind of just walks down the hall, sits at the end of the high table, and is given an extra chair and some plates or whatever. And he kind of just sits there and is quiet. He's kind of takes stuff away from Rhaenyra a little bit, I think, which is not very good. But then, of course, the king stands up to give a speech, and as he starts, Alicent turns up, and she's dressed in Hightower green. She's kind of effectively stating she's choosing her family and her side. And of course, everyone stands up, prompted by the Hightowers. And so she gets to the end. Obviously, this is obviously after the Valerians have turned up, to gracious applause. And she kind of tells her, when she gets to the table, she turns to Rhaenyra and says, "Stepdaughter, I'm happy for you." And I like the fact that kind of the second she hears it, Rhaenyra kind of has this, oh shit, kind of moment. She kind of passes over her face, kind of, what the fuck's happened, what have I done, kind of thing. And of course, everyone's sat down. The king kind of goes, "Where was I in our speech?" Lord Stone kind of goes, "You were here," and he goes, "Awesome," and he gets back into the speech and kind of sets up the joyful mood, which leads to Rhaenyra and Aenor kind of start with the dancing, and they're kind of joking with each other whilst they're dancing, and kind of making good out of it. Of course, during the dancing, Alicent kind of shifts herself from the high table. She goes to talk with her uncle, who's Lord Hightower, and they kind of chat, and Lord Hightower's like, "I was a little worried about your dad leaving you, but you're kind of doing good, and you've got allies in us if you need anything." And can we just appreciate the fact that the actor who plays Lord Hightower played Dave Coaches and Gavin and Stacey? It took me a moment, because I was like, I know this guy, I recognise him. Where do I recognise him from? I had to look him up. He's the actor who plays Dave Coaches, and he also ended up he was in Harry Potter as well, in one of the last movies. He played the janitor, I think. But I saw him, I recognised him, and it made my heart happy. It's one of those actors whose face he's a good actor, that guy. I can't remember his name, but he's a Welsh dude. Yeah. So we turn back up to the high table, where Sir Gerald Royce, who is Lady Rhea Royce's cousin, and Daemon have a bit of a tipple at the table. He kind of says, "I know you killed my cousin, bitch, your wife. You're being a dick." He kind of effectively calls Daemon out, and the only ones who really hear it are Daemon, the king, and Lord Stone, and Daemon's kind of like, "Yeah, what? What are you going to do about it?" And he kind of says, "Look, just shut up. Effectively, I can get her inheritance if you don't shut up." Kind of sends him on his way. And the king and Lord Stone are like, "Fuck, Daemon's been a bit of a dick." And of course, Daemon kind of sees Lena, who's Lenor's sister, and decides, "Hey, I'm going to go dance with her and talk with her." And that's what they do. They kind of dance and flirt for a little bit, and which is kind of cool. It's kind of, I think once you've read the book, you kind of know what's happening. Kind of Damon's kind of setting himself up for wife number 2. Of course, whilst the dancing's going on, Joffrey, Lena's lover, notices Christian and goes over and has a chat with him. And this adds, and of course, he's saying, like, you know our secret, we know yours, let's just keep him, yeah, for, like, the peace sake. And this adds to kind of the mental crap that Christian's thinking about. He's kind of like, who told him? Did Rhaenyra tell him? Did Lena tell him? Did Alicent tell him? You know, he's kind of in that weird headspace. And it's not very good. And yeah, so it's kind of course, Joffrey kind of wanders off. He joins Lena, and they're in the dancing, and this kind of adds to the chaos in Kristen's head. And of course, whilst they're dancing, Rhaenyra ends up with her uncle, and they kind of flirt with Valyrian with each other. And of course, this is caught by Viserys, and he's like, you know, he kind of gets a bit angry at it. And of course, as he kind of gets up to kind of, you know, pull him aside, a fight kicks off, and of course, Christian and Joffrey. And of course, Lena gets punched in the face in the process, and Christian just not only beats the shit out of Joffrey, he kills him too, which, you know, it broke my heart a little bit. And it definitely breaks Lenore's heart. He sobs his heart out there. And I'm like, Christian, you fucked it. Everyone's going to be questioning why you did that now, and that's the wrong thing to do, especially with what you did in the previous episode. Excuse me. And of course, once he's kind of done that and fled, the Great Hall empties, and everyone's like, the fuck? And it's very much the fuck moment, which is not very good. And of course, the episode ends with Christian. It kind of jumps between Lena and Rhaenyra kind of marrying in a small ceremony just to get it over with, and Christian kind of standing before the Weirwood tree, removing his armor and attempting to kill himself, which is not very good. Christian is obviously stopped by Alicent. Obviously, there's something that's going on. They're going to end up kind of uniting as part of a team later on. And of course, as the marriage concludes officially, it's tarnished a little bit, and we see Viserys collapse, and that's what ends the episode, which kind of makes it a little bit weird, at least in my head anyway. So we're leaving that here for today. I apologise for the sound of my voice. I'm coming out of a cold. Please leave a comment down. I apologise. Share it with others if you don't. You don't have to, but it will be much appreciated. Please subscribe. That will help me out very much as well. Don't forget, we also have Ko-fi. Please consider becoming a Ko-fi donator today. The link is in the description below. Please remember to keep it sensible in the comments. All abuse will be reported to the appropriate people. This is the Bandersnatch YouTube channel. I'm the Bandersnatch, and remember, stay weird, stay wacky, stay wondrous, and I'll see you soon.